So, welcome back to a channel update, and it's a relatively important one for a number of reasons, but nothing so dramatic. I was planning initially, earlier on in the year, as I'm sure a few people noticed, I was at least considering winding the channel up at the tail end of 2024. I will not be doing that, but there will have to be a few changes and a bit of reorganisation, and also a bit of a shift in terms of how I'm actually going to be running and using the channel moving forwards. I mean, 2024, just on a personal level for myself, has been a bit of a shitter of a year in many ways. It's been sort of difficult and tiring, and the channel has been impacted by that through a number of different vectors, really. But it will be continuing going into 2025, but there will have to be a shift in terms of how I look at the channel and also what the expectations of it are going to be moving forwards, because to put it bluntly, there isn't really the amount of content there for me to be able to continue to do just Reforged in the way that I've been doing, and considering the fact that I have also been supplementing with sort of additional content in terms of the faction overviews, and I'll probably do a couple of unit lists as well once those are finished with. And as of the time of this recording, there are only 4 faction overviews left currently, so there's not a huge amount left to do in that regard, and then we'll move on to the lists as well, but that will probably only see the midweek slots through to about March. And also the supply of replays basically has gone way down, and that's not too surprising. I mean, it's something that I have noticed happening over the course of the last year in general. But basically it means that what I'm considering doing is simply turning the monetization of the channel off and running it on more of an ad hoc basis, sort of as and when content comes in. I will then do it for that week basically. But a regular schedule, if I was only going to do purely Reforged and Silmarillion, which is what people want from me, then the blunt facts of the matter are it will simply not be able to continue at the current pace. Even if it was, even if the content was there, I would suggest that, just from a personal perspective, I want to go in this direction anyway. I was maybe being a little bit ambitious when it came to thinking I would have a little bit more time when moving into a little bit more of a management role at my job, and that was not the case. It is the other way around. Even though I'm no longer going away to sea, it's actually become a little bit more difficult, I think, to actually run the channel on a regular basis, and also that has meant that in turn I have still not really found it within me to actually want to play the game myself anymore. And that's a significant problem, and that's a problem that has been ongoing for quite a while, which is why I think sort of retooling things in this way is kind of necessary, at least as a stopgap before I figure out what I actually want to do with the channel moving forward, because I'm kind of not sure at this point in terms of the long-term goal of what I'm actually doing with it now. I mean, it was all well and good when I was at university. It was a sort of nice little supplementary income on the side, but to be brutally honest, the money is not really terribly important, and it's not been the reason that I've ever really done it. It was a nice to have at university, and it's kind of inconsequential in the present day, so I can't really use that as an excuse to try and continue to pump out content at the same rate. And I think going for a little bit more quality is probably in order, even if that means ultimately the amount of videos does decrease. The other option is trying to find something else that I can lean into, but the problem with doing that is, for a channel that's been going as long as mine has, based on one significant thing, it's kind of, you get grandfathered into doing a certain thing, I suppose, and sort of branching out from there at this point is probably not going to happen, at least not for this channel, but starting another one is not something that I really have the appetite for at this point either. So yeah, I don't know, we'll see. I think longer term it's the sort of thing that I can't really say in terms of what's going to happen, but I think in the short term I will not be stopping, and I will be continuing to put out videos and content as and when I do get it, but I won't be able to continue to do it at the same rate I have been somehow able to keep up over the course of this past year. And like I said, it's not just my own personal wants that is the case, it's the fact that there simply isn't the content there anymore in the amount that it would be required to be able to keep up that pace anyway. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, really, in that regard. So, yeah, there will be a reduction of content, basically, going into 2025. But I do hope that this means there'll be a little bit more breathing room and also a little bit more of an opportunity to try and get the channel into a better place. If not, of course, if it doesn't really work out that way, and if the stagnation continues, then ultimately, that will mean that the channel ultimately does stop longer term. But that's not something I have an intention for right now. So yeah, that's the main crux, really, of what I was going to say in this channel update. I mean, it's not exactly the most festive thing. I don't know exactly when I'm going to release this. I think it might be just after Christmas, or maybe just before. I'm not entirely sure yet when exactly I'm going to release this, but considering it is sort of Christmas/New Year time, usually things are a little bit more upbeat, but it's just been a bit of an exhausting year all round, I would say. Even the COVID years had nothing on this, really. So, yeah, I think just in general terms, I think it was good that the Reforged patch did come out in 2024, and that definitely did help things, at least on a more temporary basis. But I think, in terms of myself, I think also having that extra time to reflect on what I actually want to do will probably do me good, purely because I do want to take how do I really say that it's having a little bit of time away, though not completely. It'll give a little bit more of an opportunity to assess what's going to be happening moving forward. 2025 is likely to have its own set of obstacles, shall we say. I'm definitely going to be looking to purchase property in 2025, which comes with its own stresses and strains and movements, of course. The company that I'm working for is restructuring pretty significantly, which won't affect me directly in a grand sense, but it is still something that undoubtedly is going to take up quite a bit of attention. And yeah, going into the later part of the year as well, depending on how all of that goes, I could end up moving to a different part of the world, potentially, at its most extreme, or certainly a different part of the country that I'm currently in. All of these things, I mean, it's the sort of thing which it's not really terribly relevant to the channel as such, and as they happen, it's the sort of thing which people wouldn't really notice anyway, because that's the sort of thing which has been ongoing throughout the year just past. And if you were just watching the channel and there was no real mention of it, you wouldn't notice, but this is part of the reason why a change does need to be made. It cannot really continue in the same vein that it has been, and I would rather not completely stop, is the point as well. I would rather be able to continue to at least dip into this and keep it going, because obviously it has, it's been ongoing for quite a while now. It would be a shame to just sort of completely throw everything out and not utilise it any longer. But yeah, definitely changes, and so I think what we will probably be moving to in terms of a schedule overall will be probably looking at aiming to do one video a week for now. It was something that I reduced to in the past, but obviously this will be including faction overviews, unit lists, and battle replays, all of them together. There will also be a little bit of a gap in content as I go home for Christmas and New Year, so we will be restarting probably into the second week of January, and that will be when the new schedule starts to turn its wheels, so to speak. So that will be what we will do into 2025, and then we'll see how things go from there, basically. Because, again, part of it is necessity and part of it is desire as to why all of this is going to be changing. And I do think in the long term, one way or another, it will be for the best. So we'll just have to wait and see how things develop in that regard. So it may not be the most, may not be the news that people wanted to hear, but like I said, I was considering just packing it up entirely. So it could have been worse. It could definitely be better, but it could be worse. But yeah, we'll see. We'll basically just see how it goes with a new organisational structure, and then take it from there, I suppose. But yeah, as far as other things go, there isn't really anything else to say this year, honestly. There's not really a huge amount of sweeping changes planned in terms of Reforged. I don't think the new patch was always something that was going to make a big difference there. Silmarillion continues to chug away as it will. But other than that, you know, the regular content on the channel, it will be what it will be, I suppose. But I think I've rambled enough, really. There isn't really too much else to say, so we may as well wrap things up here. I do hope everyone has a good festive period, and I do hope that the start to 2025 will mark the beginning of a good year for all of you as well. So yeah, I hope you found this somewhat informative, and I hope you'll join me for whatever is next.